audio records as well. So you can, especially if you're doing ritual or particular types of meditation or astral journeys or whatnot, that may be a handy way. I haven't really done that myself, but I know that a lot of people do that kind of thing. And so you can keep those recordings, but you can also transcribe them afterwards again into your diary rather than just leaving them as recordings. So that makes it easier as well.
Because I was thinking of overlapping the audio technology, like the audio real-time recording with the brainwave real-time recording, and you put the two of them together so when you're studying your stuff, you can hear what you were doing at the time when there was that sudden brainwave. So I was thinking of putting the
I'd have to assume that maybe like if you start talking during using the EEG thing, that would probably be using certain parts of the brain that would conflict with it.
It depends. Like some stuff is so subconscious, and if you're honestly so subconscious, sometimes you can just say stuff and it's not even coming from like a conscious place.
So it's just a complete
and if that's the case, then you know,
so that's a whole field of
study. It all depends on your
itself.
practice. It all depends. Like I don't know what anybody here is into. I just stumbled in here, right? So it's like
it's going to be different if you're just starting out with your work, or if you've been doing it for ages and you're a guru or something like that as well. So. Okay, well let's. That's all really cool stuff. And another thing to consider, though, is at the same time, is a lot of people naysay the idea of having electronic devices present when you're doing ritual or that sort of thing as well. So that's something to consider. That may be a contributing factor.
I wouldn't necessarily take it into ritual, but I think that for just a meditative practice, it's not something that I've noticed to be harmful or disruptive in any way.
But it's one of those things that you want to be thinking of it in those terms, dependent on what the circumstances are. Yeah, and that includes like audio recordings. Like if you want to be doing audio recordings, you've got to keep in mind you've got an electronic device there. But again, that gets chalked up to, rather than chalking that up to obsessive compulsive or superstition or anything like that, chalk it up to actual practice. If you're gonna if you want to see whether it has an effect or not, commit to doing a certain period of time for a week or however many weeks, doing ritual practice without, and then doing ritual practice with electronic stuff in the room, and see what kind of differences you get.
What would the difference be? Like I can't see it comparing it.
The difference would be the awareness of the fact that it's even happening.
That in itself could be a problem.
That's a huge thing.
But also, having electronic devices, there are electric waves and stuff like that. I'm no scientist. I'm not speaking from a place of authority on this, but I mean there are going to be waves in the air and stuff like that. And I have heard people I think Brian talks about that. He doesn't like having electronics in the room and that sort of thing. So I can't speak authoritatively, but I do know that can be a contributing factor according to
electromagnetic fields on your brain.
Yeah, so it's something to consider and keep in mind. Okay, but so we got a lot of ideas in terms of the nature of the diary itself as well, and there's any number of things. One of the things I would always recommend is being clear on the information that you're keeping. Of course, as we talked about earlier, I'm just going to show what I normally do. Say it's just to give an idea. Sorry for boring everyone just now. I'm just going to make a short form sort of thing.
Yeah, it works.
Have you ever heard of something called a Koran or a God helmet? No. I'll talk to you about that.
Okay, so just as a real quick sort of example of how my diaries often come out. So I'll have the date, the day of the week, the date, and the Thelemic date. So the Thelemic date is 4/20, and it's 2013, which we call Era Vulgaris. So it's 2013 of the Common Era. 9:32 a.m. at home. I give any kind of conditions here. I'm just, obviously this is a short form note, so whatever the situation is, if there's any emotional stuff, like if I'm pissed off for some reason, or if I'm just sort of like uncomfortable or whatever, I have some kind of bowel issues or what have you, any of those kinds of, any physical conditions are obviously important. Okay, I'm doing a relaxation exercise, and then I'll keep track of it from 9:32 to 9:42. So I'll put the starting time when I start, and then I'll do the exercise, and then when I stop, I'll immediately enter the ending point. And then I'll give whatever results I had, or if it was just good, that's fine. Sometimes if it's something you're doing constantly, you don't need to keep that much information. And the reason I point that out is because a lot of the time people have different ways of doing things. Sometimes people will put, instead of keeping the exact times, they'll put 10 minutes or what have you. So sometimes people are not, they don't keep enough track of that kind of stuff. They may just sort of put like, okay, this is the date I did meditation exercise. It was good and I feel better now. And how much good is that going to do you? You know what I mean? It's not really going to provide you with a lot of context. I was just recently reading something concerning Marcelo Mata, who basically, after Crowley was dead and the AA wasn't really around anymore, he ended up taking over the AA, and he apparently had a bunch of visions, like astral journeys, that were really spurious and like not very well recorded, and didn't really seem to have much purpose to them, but he published them as a book, or put them out there anyway. But it's the type of thing that it's a really good example of why, like, what not to do, or what approach not to have. You should really have a much more sort of streamlined approach to these things. I'm going on hearsay by this, by the way. This is reading a secondhand sort of source. So, but yeah, so like keeping track of exact times of day as well. One of the things you could be keeping track of on a regular basis is phases of the moon, for instance, or other astrological sort of details. But you don't have to, because you can always go back and find out what those were. So if you have the time of day and you have the day and all that sort of thing, you can go back and find out what the moon was doing, what the other astrological things were that were happening at the time. So just something to keep in mind for that. Okay, so we talked a lot about the diary, and one of the things, like, one of the issues I think goes back to the goal. I mean, we did sort of address the fact that the goal doesn't necessarily have to be fleshed out clearly from the get-go, but I'm sure all of us may or may not have things that we are doing right now, or things that we're working on. It may be meditation for mind training, or it may be a specific ritual for certain purposes, or like it could be Enochian workings, it could be Goetic workings, it could be just training yourself in tarot readings, which, again, practice makes perfect. Don't just do one tarot reading and call yourself a magus of X degree. It could be any of these things, but the main thing is like getting started with the record and that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read through something which is specifically from the point of view of training of the mind, because I just like to give some context for some of the stuff that you could be working on or could be thinking in terms of. This is based on a piece. This is like excerpts from a piece by Ananda Matea, aka Alan Bennett, who wrote this handy little piece on the subject of Buddhist meditation that appeared in Equinox Volume 1, Number 5. So I'm just going to read some portions of it here. The religion of the Buddhas is, in the most eminent sense of the word, a practical philosophy. It is not a collection of dogmas which are to be accepted